The emergency transmission crackled through the communication arrays of the Galactic Council chambers, its desperate frequency cutting through the usual diplomatic chatter like a blade through silk. Ambassador Zephyra of the Velkan Republic clutched her crystalline communication device with 3 of her 6 appendages, her normally composed demeanor shattered by the chaos unfolding in her home system. "Please, anyone who can hear this transmission," her voice trembled through the universal translator. "The Kitharan Dominion has broken the peace accords. Their war fleets have invaded 3 of our outer colonies. They're using weapons banned by the Geneva Convention analogs. Our people are dying. We need immediate military assistance." The assembled delegates of 47 different species sat in stunned silence. The Velkan Republic had been one of the most peaceful civilizations in known space for over 3 centuries. Their technology focused on terraforming and agriculture, not warfare. Their small defense fleets were designed to ward off pirates and asteroid threats, not repel a full-scale invasion by one of the galaxy's most aggressive military powers. Fleet Commander Thas of the Brinari Confederation was the first to break the silence. His insectoid features clicked with what humans might recognize as nervous energy. "The Kitharan Dominion has 6,000 heavy cruisers and 12 dreadnoughts in that sector alone. Any intervention would require a massive coalition fleet, which none of us possess," added Counselor Vex of the Andromedan Trade Union, her 3 eyes blinking in sequence. "The largest combined fleet we could muster would be perhaps 2,000 ships, and most of those are merchant vessels with basic defensive systems." Ambassador Zephyra's distress pheromones filled the chamber, creating an acrid smell that made several species recoil. "There must be someone. The Council has protocols for this exact situation. The Protection Accords clearly state that member species under unprovoked attack can call for aid." The ancient AI that served as the Council's historical database hummed to life, its mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. "Article 247 of the Protection Accords does indeed allow for such requests. However, there is one species listed in our databases with sufficient military capability to potentially intervene." Every delegate leaned forward. The Galactic Council maintained detailed records of all spacefaring civilizations, their technologies, and their military capabilities. For the AI to suggest a single species could handle what an entire coalition couldn't was unprecedented. "Which species?" demanded Thas, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "The species designation is human, from a world called Earth in the Sol system. They are classified as a Class 7 Deathworld species. Our last contact with them was approximately 50 standard years ago during the Proxima Border Survey." A collective gasp filled the chamber. Deathworld species were legendary, and Class 7 was nearly mythical. Most spacefaring civilizations came from worlds with mild climates, low gravity, and minimal geological activity. Earth, according to the database, was a planet where the atmospheric composition was corrosive to most known life forms, where massive gravitational forces created beings of incredible physical resilience, and where geological instability had forged a species that thrived on conflict and adaptation. "But they were barely space-capable when we last made contact," protested Counselor Vex. "Their technology was primitive. Chemical rockets and basic nuclear fission." The AI's response carried what almost sounded like amusement. "Records indicate that humans advance technologically at a rate approximately 12 times faster than the galactic average. Projections suggest they may have achieved significant military space capabilities by now." Ambassador Zephyra looked around the chamber desperately. Another transmission from her homeworld interrupted the debate. This time, the voice was barely audible through the static of damaged communications equipment. "The Kitharans have reached the inner planets. They're deploying viral weapons against civilian populations. Military estimates give us 36 standard hours before total system collapse." The weight of that statement settled over the chamber like a funeral shroud. Viral weapons were among the most heinous weapons banned by galactic law. They didn't just kill. They consumed entire ecosystems, leaving nothing but sterile rock behind. "We have no choice," Zephyra said, her voice steady despite her obvious terror. "I formally invoke Article 247 of the Protection Accords and request immediate aid from the human species of Earth." The ancient AI began composing the distress call, its sensors reaching out across vast distances to locate the Sol system. The message would take 3 standard hours to reach Earth through quantum entanglement communication arrays. What none of the assembled delegates knew was that humans had been monitoring galactic communications for decades. The moment Zephyra's original distress call had been transmitted, it had been intercepted by deep space listening posts hidden in asteroid fields throughout human-controlled space. In the depths of the Sol system, aboard the massive space station designated Terra Defense Command, Admiral Sarah Chen received the communication from the Galactic Council 37 minutes before the official request for aid would arrive. She had been expecting something like this for years. Chen was a veteran of the Martian colonial wars, the asteroid belt conflicts, and the first contact incident with the Centaurian probe 40 years ago. At 63, she was one of the most experienced military commanders in human space. Her weathered face carried scars from a dozen different conflicts, and her cybernetic left arm was a reminder of the boarding action that had earned her the rank of Admiral. "Status report," she ordered as the tactical display came alive around her command chair. The holographic interface showed real-time positions of every human military vessel within 30 light-years of Earth. "We have 47 vessels of the line combat-ready and within jump range," reported Captain Marcus Webb, her chief of staff. "That includes 8 dreadnoughts, 16 heavy cruisers, and 23 destroyers. Additionally, we have 3 carrier groups with full fighter complements." "What about the experimental units?" Webb's expression grew serious. "The Shadow Fleet is on standby. 12 vessels using the new stealth technology, including the flagship Nemesis. They've been waiting for a combat test." Admiral Chen studied the tactical data flowing across her screens. The Kithran Dominion was known to human intelligence services. Earth's spy networks had been gathering information about galactic civilizations for decades, preparing for the day when humanity would need to take its place among the stars. The Kitharans were aggressive, but their technology was based on plasma weapons and energy shields. They had never encountered human kinetic weapons or adaptive tactical doctrines. "Begin Fleet Alert Status 1, Chen ordered. "All vessels are to prepare for immediate departure, combat loadouts, full provisions for extended campaign operations." "Admiral," Webb said carefully, "the Council's formal request hasn't arrived yet. Are we really going to intervene in an alien war?" Chen's smile was cold as winter on Luna. "Captain, the Kitharans just made a critical error. They attacked a peaceful civilization and used weapons of mass destruction against civilians. In human terms, they just painted a target on their backs. The fact that we're being asked to help is just a convenient excuse to do what we were going to do anyway." The Admiral activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her image appeared on screens throughout human space, from the orbital platforms around Earth to the mining stations in the Kuiper Belt. "This is Admiral Chen. As of this moment, all human military forces are under my direct command. We have received reports of unprovoked aggression against a peaceful civilization by a species known as the Kitharan Dominion. They have used weapons of mass destruction against civilian targets and are engaged in what can only be described as genocide." She paused, letting that sink in before continuing. "The Galactic Council has formally requested our aid. We are going to provide it. But understand this, we are not going to simply drive the Kitharans back. We are going to make an example of them. We are going to show this galaxy exactly what happens when someone threatens the innocent while humans are within range to do something about it." Throughout human space, warships began powering up their engines. The massive dreadnought Terra's Wrath emerged from its hidden dock inside a hollowed-out asteroid. The carrier Yorktown deployed its fighter wings for pre-flight checks. Dozens of smaller vessels, each one representing decades of human military evolution and adaptation, began converging on predetermined jump points. The most feared ships in the fleet, however, remained invisible. The Shadow Fleet vessels were painted in adaptive materials that made them nearly undetectable to most known sensor systems. Their weapons were designed not just to destroy enemy ships, but to gather intelligence, disrupt communications, and create confusion in enemy formations. As the formal request for aid finally arrived through official channels, Admiral Chen was already reviewing targeting data for Kitharan military installations. The aliens had asked for Earth's help, but they were about to get something much more dangerous. They were about to discover why Earth had been classified as a Class 7 death world, and why humans had spent 50 years preparing for exactly this moment. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans went to war, they didn't just fight to win. They fought to ensure that the war would never need to be fought again. In the depths of space, human warships engaged their quantum drives and began the journey toward the Velkan Republic. They carried with them weapons that no galactic civilization had ever encountered, tactics that had been refined through centuries of human warfare, and a determination that had been forged in the crucibles of a world where survival meant constant adaptation and overwhelming response to any threat. The Kitharan Dominion had made their choice when they decided to wage war against civilians. Now they were about to face the consequences of attracting the attention of Earth's Deathworlder war fleet. The Kitharan fleet commander, High War Duke Krexthor, stood on the bridge of his flagship Void Render as his forces systematically dismantled the last Velkan defense platforms orbiting their homeworld. His reptilian features displayed satisfaction as he watched the elegant crystalline structures of Velkan orbital habitats dissolve under concentrated plasma bombardment. "Status of the cleansing operation," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 17 star systems for the Dominion. "Approximately 60% of the surface population has been eliminated by our viral agents," reported his intelligence officer. "The remaining settlements are expected to succumb within 8 standard hours. Our ground forces report minimal resistance." Krexthor's predatory smile revealed rows of serrated teeth. The Velkans had been fools to believe their neutrality and peaceful disposition would protect them. The Dominion needed their agricultural worlds and rare mineral deposits. The fact that the current inhabitants had to be removed was simply a matter of efficiency. "Sir," called out the sensor operator, his tone suddenly urgent. "I'm detecting quantum signatures at the edge of the system, multiple contacts moving at impossible velocity." The War Duke turned toward the tactical display, his confidence wavering slightly. "Clarify impossible velocity. They're traveling at approximately 95% of light speed, sir. Our sensors indicate they're dropping to sublight, but maintaining formation even during the transition. I count... This cannot be correct." "What do you count?" Krexthor demanded. 47 vessels, sir. But their energy signatures don't match any known galactic ship classifications. They're generating power readings that suggest Dreadnought-class vessels, but they're much smaller than our ships. On the main display, the approaching fleet became visible as it dropped from quantum drive. The Kitharan officers stared in confusion at the newcomers. The ships were sleek, angular, and dark. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making them difficult to track visually even at close range. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Krexthor ordered. "Unknown vessels, you are entering a Dominion military operation zone. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." The response came not as a transmission, but as an action. The lead human vessel, Terra's Wrath, powered up weapons systems unlike anything in the Kitharan database. Instead of the familiar glow of plasma charging, the human ship's weapon ports revealed what appeared to be metallic tubes. Admiral Chen stood on Terra's Wrath's bridge, watching the Kitharan fleet through her ship's advanced sensor array. The enemy formation was exactly what human intelligence had predicted. 600 heavy cruisers arranged in a standard dominance pattern, with the massive flagship at the center surrounded by concentric rings of smaller vessels. Analysis complete. "Admiral," reported Commander Sarah Park, the fleet's chief tactical officer. "Enemy vessels are using plasma-based weapons with maximum effective range of 2.7 million kilometers. Their shields appear to be energy-based, designed to deflect directed energy attacks." "Perfect," Chen replied. "They've never encountered kinetic weapons. Launch fighter wings from all carriers. Begin Operation Thunderstrike." Throughout the human fleet, fighter bays opened and disgorged swarms of small, fast attack craft. Unlike the sleek fighters used by most galactic civilizations, human fighters were angular, armored, and bristling with weapons. Each pilot was a veteran of the asteroid wars, trained to fight in three-dimensional space, where momentum and physics were more important than shields and energy weapons. The Catharan sensors tracked the approaching fighters, but failed to understand the threat they represented. To alien military doctrine, small craft were used for reconnaissance and harassment. The idea that fighters could pose a serious threat to capital ships was foreign to their strategic thinking. "Sir," the Catharan sensor operator called out, "the small craft are approaching at attack vectors. Should we launch interceptors?" Krexthor dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. "Concentrate fire on their capital ships. Those fighters are too small to threaten real warships." It was a mistake that would cost him dearly. The first wave of human fighters roared past the Kitharan perimeter ships at a significant fraction of light speed. As they passed, each fighter released a salvo of kinetic penetrator rounds, dense metal slugs accelerated to tremendous velocity by magnetic rail systems. The bullets, traveling at nearly 10% of light speed, punched through Catharan shields as if they didn't exist. The shields that protected alien ships were designed to deflect energy. A physical projectile traveling at relativistic speeds was something their technology simply couldn't handle. The first 3 Catharan cruisers to be targeted suffered catastrophic hull breaches as the kinetic rounds tore through multiple bulkheads before expending their energy. "What kind of weapons are those?" Krexthor demanded, watching 3 of his ships list helplessly with atmosphere streaming from dozens of holes. Before anyone could answer, the human capital ships opened fire. The weapons that the Kitharans had mistaken for simple tubes revealed their true nature. They were mass drivers, electromagnetic cannons that could accelerate solid projectiles to incredible speeds with perfect accuracy across millions of kilometers. Terra's Wrath fired first. A tungsten rod the size of a small shuttle erupted from its main gun at 8% of light speed. The projectile covered the distance to the Kitharan flagship in less than 3 seconds. When it struck Void Render's shields, the energy discharge was so intense that nearby ships were temporarily blinded by the electromagnetic pulse. The shields held for approximately 1/10 of a second before catastrophically failing. The tungsten rod continued through 3 decks of the flagship before finally being stopped by the ship's main reactor shielding. The damage was devastating. Entire sections of the ship were depressurized, and critical systems throughout the vessel went offline. "Impossible," Krexthor gasped as damage reports flooded in. His flagship, which had survived dozens of major engagements, had been crippled by a single shot from an unknown weapon. "Sir, we need to withdraw," his tactical officer urged. "These weapons, our shields can't stop them. Our armor isn't designed for this kind of impact." But withdrawal was no longer an option. The human fleet had deployed into a formation that surrounded the Catharan force on 3 sides. Worse, ships were appearing from nowhere. The Shadow Fleet had decloaked and was moving to cut off the only escape route. Captain Elena Vasquez commanded the stealth destroyer Night Hunter as it materialized less than 50 kilometers from a cluster of Kitharan cruisers. Her ship had been invisible to alien sensors for the past 20 minutes, moving into position for what human tactical doctrine called a knife fight. close-range engagement where superior human technology and training would be most effective. "All weapons free," she ordered. "Target their engines and command structures. We want prisoners, not debris." Night Hunter's weapons were different from the massive kinetic cannons used by the dreadnoughts. Instead, she carried precision plasma cutters originally designed for asteroid mining, weaponized and upgraded for ship-to-ship combat. The concentrated beams could slice through alien hull material with surgical precision, disabling systems without destroying the entire vessel. Within minutes, 6 Kitharin cruisers found their engines severed from their hulls and their weapon systems melted into slag. The crews were trapped but alive, exactly as Admiral Chen had ordered. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, the Kitharin Dominion had lost 237 vessels either destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had suffered no casualties beyond minor hull scoring from a few lucky plasma shots that had found their mark. High War Duke Krexthor found himself aboard a human boarding vessel, his hands secured behind his back with restraints that his species' superior strength couldn't break. Around him sat the surviving officers from his fleet, all of them staring in shock at their captors. The humans were smaller than Kitharans, but there was something deeply unsettling about them. They moved with fluid efficiency, their eyes constantly scanning for threats, their weapons held with the casual competence of born warriors. These were clearly predators, evolved on a world where constant vigilance was the price of survival. Admiral Chen appeared via holographic projection in the boarding craft's main compartment. Her image was transmitted from Terra's Wrath, where she was coordinating the next phase of human operations. "War Duke Krexthor," she began, her voice carrying an authority that made even the proud Kitharin lower his eyes. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are now prisoners of war." "You have no authority here," Krexthor tried to maintain his dignity. "The Dominion will send reinforcements. This system belongs to us by right of conquest." Chen's smile was cold enough to freeze methane. "Actually, Warduke, you've just made a critical error in judgment. You attacked a peaceful civilization. You used weapons of mass destruction against civilian targets. By the standards of human military law, you are war criminals." She paused, letting that sink in before continuing. "But more importantly, you've given us an excuse to do something we've been wanting to do for quite some time." The holographic display behind Chen shifted to show the approaching human fleet. Not the 47 ships that had just destroyed his force, but hundreds of vessels emerging from quantum drive throughout Kitharin space. "You see, War Duke, what you just faced was our rapid response force. Our main fleet has been en route to Kitharin territory since we received reports of your war crimes. Right now, human forces are engaging Dominion installations in 12 different star systems." Krexthor stared at the display in growing horror. The scale of the human response was beyond anything the Dominion had prepared for. "This is madness. You're declaring war on the entire Dominion over one minor territorial expansion." "No," Chen corrected him. "We're ending a war that you started when you decided genocide was an acceptable military tactic. The difference is that when humans wage war, we wage it to ensure it never needs to be waged again." The transmission ended, leaving the Kitharin prisoners to contemplate their situation. Outside the boarding craft's small windows, they could see human ships systematically rescuing Velkan survivors and beginning the process of administering medical aid to the survivors of the viral weapons. But beyond the rescue operation, something far more ominous was taking place. Human ships were departing the system in groups, carrying with them detailed intelligence about Kitharin military capabilities, strategic resources, and command structures. The galaxy was about to discover that when Earth's Deathworlder war fleet went to war, they didn't just fight battles. They fought to win completely, permanently, and with such overwhelming force that the very idea of challenging humanity would become unthinkable to any civilization that witnessed the aftermath. Supreme Overlord Thexmar of the Catharan Dominion received the reports from his military command center deep within the fortress world of Cathara Prime. Each transmission brought worse news than the last. In the span of 72 standard hours, his empire's military machine had been systematically dismantled by an enemy that had appeared from nowhere. "How many fleets have we lost?" he demanded, his massive form towering over the tactical display that showed the current state of Dominion space. General Vorth, his chief military advisor, approached with obvious reluctance. 43 battle groups have been destroyed or captured, Supreme Overlord. The humans have seized control of 17 star systems and established quarantine zones around all inhabited worlds. Quarantine zones. Thexmar's voice carried the fury of a predator that had suddenly found itself as prey. The humans claim they are conducting decontamination procedures to neutralize the viral weapons we deployed against civilian populations. Our intelligence indicates they possess medical technology capable of reversing biological warfare agents. The Supreme Overlord struck the tactical display with enough force to shatter the crystalline surface. Impossible. Those viruses were designed to be irreversible. They consume organic matter at the cellular level. Apparently not irreversible to human medical science, Vorth replied carefully. Long-range sensors indicate that Velkan agricultural worlds are already showing signs of ecological recovery. The humans appear to be using some form of nanotechnology to repair environmental damage. Across Dominion space, the systematic advance of human forces continued with mechanical precision. Unlike the chaotic fury that Kitharans associated with warfare, the human campaign followed patterns that were both alien and terrifying in their efficiency. Admiral Chen coordinated the operation from her flagship as Terra's Wrath moved through the Kitharan home system. Around her, holographic displays showed the status of human forces throughout Dominion territory. Every engagement followed the same pattern. Human forces would arrive without warning, neutralize local defenses with minimal casualties, and then begin what they called pacification protocols. "Status report on the core worlds," she requested. Commander Park activated her tactical display. "All primary Catharan military installations have been secured. We've captured their main shipyards, weapons manufacturing facilities, and command centers. Total human casualties remain under 50 across the entire campaign." "And civilian casualties?" "Minimal. Our surgical strike protocols have been extremely effective. The Kytharans are learning that their military installations offer no protection against our weapons, so they're surrendering rather than risk collateral damage to nearby population centers." The secret to human success wasn't just technological superiority. Decades of studying galactic civilizations had revealed fundamental weaknesses in alien military thinking. Most species had evolved on worlds where resources were abundant and conflict was rare. Their concept of warfare was based on ritualized combat, territorial disputes, and limited objectives. Humans came from Earth, a world where survival meant total commitment and overwhelming response to any threat. Human military doctrine didn't recognize concepts like acceptable losses or limited warfare. When humans went to war, they went to war completely, using every advantage they possessed to achieve total victory in the shortest possible time. The Kitharan fortress world of Kithara Prime represented the ultimate test of human capabilities. The planet's surface was covered with massive defensive installations, shield generators powerful enough to deflect asteroid impacts, and weapon batteries that could destroy approaching fleets before they reached orbit. Admiral Chen studied the tactical data as her fleet approached the system. Kithara Prime wasn't just heavily defended. It was practically an artificial construct dedicated entirely to warfare. The planet's population of 12 billion Kitharans was supported by massive underground cities designed to survive siege warfare. "Recommendations?" she asked her staff. "Conventional assault would be costly," replied Colonel James Harrison, commander of the fleet's Marine Expeditionary Force. "The planet's defenses are integrated into the bedrock itself. We'd need to dig them out installation by installation." "What about kinetic bombardment?" suggested Commander Park. "A few asteroid velocity impacts would crack their shields." Chen considered the options before activating the fleet communication system. "All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. We're going to try something new. Deploy the gravity well generators." Throughout the human fleet, ships that looked like ordinary destroyers began extending massive arrays of exotic matter projectors. The technology was based on human research into quantum gravity manipulation, the ability to create artificial gravitational fields powerful enough to affect the space-time continuum itself. The effect on Kythera Prime's defenses was immediate and devastating. The planet's shield generators, designed to deflect physical objects and energy weapons, had no protection against the fundamental force that held the universe together. As artificial gravity wells formed around key defensive installations, the shields collapsed under gravitational stress that their designers had never imagined possible. But Admiral Chen wasn't finished demonstrating human capabilities. As the planetary defenses crumbled, she activated a communication channel that reached every inhabited world in former Dominion space. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet, addressing all populations of the former Kytharan Dominion. Your government has been found guilty of war crimes including genocide, use of biological weapons against civilian populations, and unprovoked aggression against peaceful civilizations." Her image appeared on communication screens throughout hundreds of star systems. Behind her, the tactical display showed the complete collapse of Kytharan military resistance. Effective immediately, the Kytharan Dominion is dissolved. All military forces will surrender unconditionally. All weapons of mass destruction will be surrendered to human custody for disposal. All populations previously enslaved or oppressed by the Dominion are hereby liberated and granted full autonomy. On Kythera Prime, Supreme Overlord Thexmar watched the transmission with growing understanding of his species' new reality. The humans weren't just defeating his military, they were dismantling his entire civilization and rebuilding it according to their own standards. "What are your terms for surrender?" he asked when human representatives arrived at his fortress palace. Captain Marcus Webb, Admiral Chen's chief of staff, consulted a portable data device before responding. "Complete demilitarization of all Kytharan worlds. Reparations to be paid to all species harmed by Dominion aggression. Supervised transition to representative government for all Kytharan populations. Permanent human monitoring stations in this system to ensure compliance." "And if we refuse?" Webb's expression remained professionally neutral, but there was something in his eyes that reminded Thexmar that humans were predators, evolved on a death world. "Sir, you've seen what our rapid response force could accomplish. Our main battle fleet hasn't even been deployed yet. If you require a demonstration of what full human military commitment looks like, we can arrange that." The Supreme Overlord looked around at his ruined palace, his collapsed defenses, and his captured generals. "What guarantee do we have that you won't simply exterminate us?" "Humans don't exterminate species," Webb replied. "We educate them. You'll learn to coexist peacefully with your neighbors, or you'll learn what happens when Deathworlders decide you're too dangerous to tolerate." Back in Galactic Council chambers, the assembled delegates watched the reports from former Dominion space with a mixture of awe and terror. In less than a week, the humans had accomplished what the entire council had deemed impossible: the complete defeat of one of the galaxy's most aggressive military powers. Ambassador Zephyra of the Velkan Republic stood to address the assembly. Her species had been saved from extinction. Their worlds were being healed by human medical technology. and their scattered populations were being relocated to safe zones while their homeworlds recovered. "The humans have exceeded every expectation," she reported. "Not only did they defeat the Catharan military, they've begun reversing the ecological damage caused by biological weapons. Velkin agricultural worlds are expected to return to full productivity within 6 standard months." "What are their demands?" asked Fleet Commander Thas of the Brunari Confederation, his mandibles clicking nervously. "None," Zephyra replied, causing a stir throughout the chamber. "The humans have asked for nothing in return for their intervention. They've established medical stations throughout our space to assist with recovery efforts, but they've made no territorial claims and demanded no resources." The ancient AI's voice filled the chamber. "This is consistent with human behavior patterns observed during initial contact 50 years ago. Records indicate that human military doctrine prioritizes humanitarian objectives over conquest or resource acquisition." Counselor Vex of the Andromedan Trade Union rose to speak. "Have the humans indicated their intentions regarding galactic politics? Will they seek membership in the Council?" Before anyone could respond, the chamber's communication system activated. Admiral Chen's image appeared in the center of the assembly, transmitted from Terra's Wrath as it patrolled the former Dominion capital system. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, "I'm transmitting on behalf of Earth's government to clarify our position regarding galactic affairs." Every delegate in the chamber focused intently on the human commander. This was the being who had single-handedly reshaped the galactic balance of power in less than a week. "Earth has no territorial ambitions beyond our current sphere of influence. We have no intention of joining the Galactic Council or interfering in the internal affairs of peaceful civilizations. However, we are establishing certain non-negotiable principles for our future interactions." The holographic display behind Chen activated, showing a star map of known space with clearly defined zones of influence. First, any use of weapons of mass destruction against civilian populations will result in immediate human intervention and the complete dismantling of the aggressor civilization's military capabilities. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The humans weren't just establishing themselves as a galactic power. They were establishing themselves as galactic police. Second, any attempt to conquest or subjugate peaceful civilizations will be met with the same response that the Catharan Dominion experienced. Third, any civilization that requests human assistance against aggression will receive it, regardless of their technological level, political system, or species. Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly as she concluded her statement. "Earth wants nothing more than peaceful coexistence with all galactic civilizations. But we've learned from our own history that peace must be actively defended. We're prepared to serve as that defense for any civilization that cannot protect itself." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. The humans had just declared themselves the guardians of galactic peace, backed by military technology that made resistance pointless. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy settled into a new equilibrium. Trade routes that had been disrupted by Catharan aggression reopened under human protection. Former Dominion slave worlds began the process of rebuilding their civilizations with human assistance. The Catharan species itself, stripped of their military apparatus but not their basic rights, began learning what humans called civilized behavior. And throughout known space, the lesson was clear. Humanity had arrived as a galactic power, and they had arrived with both the capability and willingness to enforce their own concept of justice. The galaxy had called for aid, and they had received something far more profound than rescue. They had received protection from the only species in known space that combined overwhelming military capability with an unshakable commitment to defending the innocent. The age of predatory civilizations conquering the weak was over. The age of Earth's Deathworlder war fleet had begun.